are going to be starting. So, um, just to make sure that everyone can hear me, give me a thumbs up or hit in the chat to let me know. But it does look like we have everything set. Okay, so tonight is on building a really great campaign team. So we're going to be talking about how do you build a campaign team, and then once you find them and recruit them, how do you keep them on board with your campaign? How do you keep it to be a really cohesive group? So that's what we're going to be looking at tonight for our campaign training. So working for a campaign is definitely not for everyone. Um, there's usually very little formal mentoring. People kind of get thrown into it. There's not much structured feedback if people are used to that. Everything's very fast paced, really no administrative support. Uh, Also, the schedule's pretty tight as well, so it can be kind of a stressful situation, and being part of a campaign team is just not for everyone on that. So campaign teams do need to be able to work together under pressure. They need to be able to take in a large amount of information very quickly and synthesize it, meaning like come together on a unified message. They also need to be able to give a great amount of attention to detail. But number one, they have to be willing to put the mission first. Mission is first. Oh, Susan says the sound is cutting in and out. Let's see. Let's get that up a little bit. All right. Did that with the intro music too. Hmm. Well, we'll continue and see if that smooths out a little bit. Hopefully that's smoothing out a little bit for the audio. So just let me know if it is working well and we'll keep going. Okay, so your volunteers they're more likely to volunteer to be campaign staff or to become part of your campaign staff if they feel that their particular help is necessary to help you achieve the goal. And for that to happen, you have to show that you're a person that is working towards a like a greater cause, something that they can get on board with and believe with and support. Um, and they also want to know that you're working towards a project that the volunteer can really envision, and that what you're going to be doing is going to help them envision that. So if you can do that, that's going to be really spectacular. And we're going to have um, a little cat assistance with this video. Okay, so the campaign manager decided to make an appearance on this. So how do you find your campaign staff? So we'll go through that first. Where can you find the campaign staff? Uh, First thing, before you even look for your campaign staff, you're going to need to make sure you have a very clearly defined campaign goal or goals. This will decide how big of a team you need, what type of team members you need, what skills are needed. It's also going to help you later on in retention as well. Be honest about your goals when you talk to your potential campaign staff. Not only does that help you recruit the right people, it helps you to keep them. Decide if you're going to have volunteers, paid staff, or a combination. Um, I know it's kind of a chicken and an egg if you would have enough funds to pay for a campaign manager, but if you don't have a campaign manager, then you're probably not going to have enough funds for your campaign. So it is a little bit of a chicken and an egg. If you can at all pay for someone, it would be the campaign manager. That's the big one. And if you are able to pay for a campaign manager, that's going to make several things organizing your campaign and your campaign staff a lot easier going on. Ah, good. The campaign manager is settling down to groom. Uh, where else can you find campaign staff? Yes, family and friends, but I want to caution you on this one. Yes, these are the people who are most likely to wish good things for you and want to help out. However, you want to come through a campaign with your important relationships still intact. So, that's the caution I would throw on that. Now, where friends and family can really, really help is they may know someone that would be really good to help you with your campaign, to help you staff your campaign. So be sure to ask them for referrals. Who do they know that could help you with, X, Y, or Z? Yes, political parties and groups, but in the LP, I mean, we all know we're kind of a small sphere, so you're probably going to have to look outside the Libertarian Party for many of your key campaign staff members. And that's okay. They don't have to be libertarians. They just have to really believe in what you're doing and be willing to go all out for that. But local affinity groups or issue groups, that's a good place to look for campaign staff. Another really good one is, I mean, of course, you have been involved in your local community and part of some type of volunteer organization or issue oriented organization, really involved with them for at least a year before you announced you were running, right? That's a good place to go to look. Another one is campaign donors. If someone's willing to donate to you, find out what skills they have, and they may be willing to be part of your staff. And not just in fundraising, but they could be staff in other areas. Social media. Key to finding good volunteers on social media is the proper ask and to phrase it in the right way. And the way to find volunteers through social media is this: share stories of your existing volunteers. That's called social proof. Social proof is um, people are more likely to try something if the existing evidence exists that the ones who did it before had a good experience. So that's what social proof is. So if you're going to go onto social media and recruit for volunteers, which you definitely can and should do, volunteers either to be like a project volunteer or campaign staff, what you want to do is you want to highlight the great experiences other campaign staff are having on there. So, and it's kind of along the lines of how we have, like online ratings of companies and different things. So share those stories of other campaign staff working on your campaign and have quotes from them about how that has made a difference. Oh, thank you. So, yep, Mama said, yep, I'm so good at social media recruiting, and that is excellent advice. Thank you very much. The other thing is, yeah, your other campaign volunteers. Do you already have really good campaign volunteers? They may know the perfect staff person for you. So check out your initial campaign volunteers, even if they've only volunteered an hour or two for you. They may know the perfect person and they will introduce you. So, definitely do that. So now we're going to get a little more into what the campaign rules are, the personality type needed, and then an outside of the box place to look for that campaign staffer. So the very first one is, of course, your campaign manager. That should be the very first role that you fill on your campaign staff. And they oversee everything. And I mean everything. Everything, all the day-to-day operations. Depending if they're hired or volunteer, they may do the hiring and management staff, coordination and implementation of fundraising operation. I mean everything, right? Creating and managing the budget. They can do messaging. I mean, it's a ton. It's a ton what your campaign manager does. Your campaign manager is really your chief of operations. Now, if you are paying your campaign manager, part of why you're paying them is for them to find the rest of the campaign team, including your treasurer and other hard to fill positions. So, yes, and let them take your personal social media and you stay off of it. Definitely, that's good advice. Or if you have a social media manager, definitely do that too. So, yes, candidates should not be running their own social media accounts because of the stress levels involved. And any candidate, and I don't care how often of awesome of a candidate you are, and that includes me. Like I am definitely including myself. When you get actively involved in a campaign, your IQ drops about 40 points. It's just how it works. You're under constant stress, and it's a fight or flight type of stress, and you're not able to do either. And it really impairs decision making. It's a tough, vicious thing. So, what's the personality type for a campaign manager? Um, Campaign managers have to have really excellent organizational skills. They have to be really level headed. They also have to have good interpersonal skills. They can't be afraid of raising money. And they also need to be pretty blunt internally. I'm not talking cruel, I'm saying blunt. They need to be pretty blunt internally. So, where's some outside the box places you can find a good campaign manager if you can't find one that has campaign management experience? I would find someone with successful sales experience, not retail sales, that's a different type of sales, but I am talking actual, um, going out there getting clients, you know, um, hunting and skinning type sales, to put it into sales language. That's the type of salesperson you're going to be looking for. Or you're going to be looking, now this person is probably going to have better people skills. They're also going to have better fundraising skills. However, what you also want to look for if you want to go a slightly different direction with your campaign manager is you want to find a really good project manager. So someone that has project management experience. That would be excellent to have. And yep, we have think HR as a hint from one of our chatters. So yep, definitely. Now we get into fundraising, your development person or fundraising or however you want to turn that. So they are responsible for raising the money that allows the campaign to accomplish its goals. So the finance director is going to work pretty close with the campaign manager, a little bit with the candidate, because the candidate's going to have to make a lot of fundraising calls, that type of thing. And they're also in charge of keeping the candidate on track with fundraising, preparing for and setting up staff call time for the candidate to do overseeing all the fundraising events, all of that kind of information. So, what is the personality type? If you're looking at finding a good fundraiser, what's the personality type that you're looking for? They need to be highly organized. They also have to be very outgoing and willing to push the candidate and the campaign towards meeting their fundraising goals. So, those are the good personality characteristics of a good development person. So, out of the box areas, of course, sales, right? So, if you can't find someone who's strictly in fundraising, look for sales. But also look for someone who is in the events industry. They have the necessary skill set, definitely, to do this. So, if you know someone that has done and not just, I'm not talking like amateur for themselves, but I'm talking, like they have wedding planning experience or corporate event experience, that type of thing. Perfect. They can translate those skills into fundraising like you won't even believe. Also, if you have someone who likes to help in nonprofits, like that's the person everyone goes to for the church fundraiser, that type of thing, or that's the person who's able to raise the funds for the Lions Club, that type of thing, that also would be an excellent person. So, although they're not doing it as a profession, it's something that in their personal time they're really good at. Next position would be either communications, press secretary, however you want to term that. They're in charge of all the campaign's interactions with media and messaging. So your messaging person your policy messaging person might be underneath them, might work alongside them. Just depends on how you set your campaign up. People set it up in different ways, and that's fine. In smaller campaigns, sometimes you'll have a person doing a couple of these jobs, and that's okay too. So they build relationships with the press. They're also going to communicate with the media. They either handle the social media or they have a social media person under them. They may help write or develop the campaign literature. They're really involved in the look of the campaign as well. So, probably the graphic design work is underneath them as well, because how something looks communicates about 90% of the message. So, that's what they do. They may draft speeches. They may write the copy for the website. So that's what they do. Anything to do with communicating the message. The personality type of your communications person, they really should have prior experience in contact with the media. They need to be a good writer and communicator, very level headed. They also need to be a proactive thinker and a bit of a strategist, not a reactive thinker, which can be a little difficult when you get into people who have career fields in writing. A lot of times they like to really sit back for a while and ponder things and react. And you need someone that is going to be a little more of a strategist. So, thinking outside of the box, where can you look for them if you don't have someone who is a press secretary or communications person? Look for someone that is a podcaster. If you see someone that is a podcaster and you really like their style of communication, they might make a really good communications person for you. Yes, someone who is a writer or an author, even if it's a technical writer, the skill set is going to be the same that you're going to be wanting to use. But another outside the box area would be a pastor or a clergy person. They also have the incredible skills needed and the level head needed. And trust me, they have a lot of public speaking and a lot of writing skills. So you might want to look at someone that is either studying for clergy, or they are clergy, or retired clergy, or something like that, or they're a lay clergy. So that's kind of an out of the box person to look at to bring into your campaign staff. Field ops or direct voter contact, however you want to classify that person in your campaign. So they're in charge of making sure the campaign gets its message out directly to voters. So face-to-face engagement, whether it can be larger groups, but it's usually one-on-one. So they're going to develop the plan that includes door knocking, phone banking, get out the vote efforts, those types of things. Unless you have someone specifically for get out the vote, usually you have a much larger campaign when you start to segment that tightly. So the personality, again, you're going to see a refrain here. They need to be highly organized. Okay? They need to be really energetic, because this is a physically and mentally demanding job, because they need to lead from the front, not from the rear on this. They need to be capable of motivating people, managing other staffers and volunteers without making them rage quit. They also need to be able to work with large amounts of data. I know this one's a hard one. So, out of the box suggestion for where to find a really good field ops person: find a really busy, they used to be super, super busy, either stay at home mom or stay at home dad, whose kids are now teens or older. The ones that have kids that were into everything and you just wondered how they were able to do it all, and they also had a social life and they looked put together and their home was wonderful. That's your person for field ops if you're looking outside of the box of the normal people that you would think. Another out of the box idea: search for someone who has a military background, preferably a sergeant rank or higher, or a captain rank or higher, and find someone in the military who is responsible for not only watching over whatever group or unit they were in charge of, but the logistics for it as well. So that's kind of an out of the box area for people to for you to look. So looking at all the people, think, God, who do I know that used to be in the military, or who do I know that was a stay at home, or that just like did everything, or they had part-time work but they also stayed at home, because being able to juggle kids, the logistics of family life, all of that, perfect training for that, actually. And the type of personality that can do that well, those are your personalities you want to look for. Volunteer coordinator. Volunteer coordinator works closely with the field director usually, and also maybe your events person. And they recruit and manage your volunteers. So as you notice, as you get these key campaign staffers in place, they're going to take a lot of the strain off of the candidate, because now the candidate isn't looking for every single volunteer. The candidate isn't going nuts trying to figure out how they're going to get 6 door knockers to go out with them this weekend, right? This is how getting these key staff positions in takes the strain off everyone. Can't Then the candidate's not freaking out. Everyone on the campaign is happier. So they're going to coordinate the work of the volunteers. They're going to utilize their skills and make sure they match up so that the right volunteer is in the right place, where their talents will be the best. The personality. This one is all about interpersonal skills, patience, persistence, enthusiasm, just real good communication skills. Think Mr. Rogers. Mr. Rogers is who you want for your volunteer coordinator. So out of the box, someone who is a good hostess or host, someone who gives really good dinner party, right? Where when you went to something at their house and you immediately felt welcomed, everything looked wonderful, everything flowed well, and you felt appreciated and loved at that dinner party. That would be your person. Another person, like someone who is a greeter, right, or a receptionist. Those types of skills. Okay, that's the type of person you want, like a receptionist, a greeter at a church or an organization, someone who helps with more membership at an organization. That's who you want. You can do, like your constituency organizers. That's getting kind of down into the weeds for a lot of campaigns. But it is good to have if you can have that. That's a person who slices and dices down to constituency groups like labor groups or seniors or veterans or persons of color or new residents to the area, however you want to slice and dice it. So that's what they do. They get it down into these little micro groups, and then they really look at what makes those little micro groups tick, what they're interested in, and they work really hard to connect with those groups. So they set up events and meetings and all that kind of stuff. It is great. So that person should have experience working with a diverse group of people, and I'm not using that in like a bad or negative negative way. I know when I use the word diverse, it can trigger people. Don't be triggered. But they just need to be able to be really comfortable working around a wide range of people, and have a very curious and open mind. This one is a little harder to place, but I would place the value on someone who's very curious, interested, likes to ask questions, doesn't make assumptions. So if you have a friend that's really curious and kind of likes to dig into things and get really nerdy, that's your person. Scheduler. So a scheduler is responsible for accepting and acting on all invitations, speaking events, all that kind of stuff. They keep the candidate's schedule. Sometimes the campaign manager will do this. If a campaign manager shares a job, most often they will be also the scheduler. If you have a scheduler who is separate, they are on a par. They are on an equal footing with the campaign manager, because the scheduler isn't just a secretary. They don't just keep your calendar. They are deciding on priorities. So they're accepting events or invitations based on priority, goal priority. Okay? So the scheduler needs to be really assertive. They got to be meticulous with the details. They got to be able to be pleasant on the phone. but they also have to be able to say no and be pretty damn firm. An assistant or secretarial background, a paralegal is actually a really good fit for this position. A food service type manager, like a front of the house restaurant manager, right? That's also someone that would have the perfect skills to be a scheduler. Technology manager, your IT person. That one's pretty self-explanatory, so I don't think I'm going to have to go into that one too much. Office manager. So every campaign should have an office, even if it is your living room in your home, and you should have office hours. And so you need someone to help manage that. So they're responsible for keeping the headquarters on track, making sure you have everything. They're looking at all the logistics thing, the supplies. Do you have enough lit? Is it ready for people? They may be the one to also go out and put yard signs out, all that kind of stuff. So out of the box wait person to look for this one, a Boy Scout or Girl Scout troop leader. That personality would make a phenomenal office manager. So how to keep your campaign staff. So you found your campaign staff. Now you got to keep them. And that can get really tricky. Really tricky indeed. Usually for the November elections, starting in September, but going through October, I start to get a lot of mediation calls with campaigns, where the campaign staff is fighting and the candidate is fighting and the campaign is starting to implode. Um, and it's just the stress. It's the stress from it. And so that's when I try to do a conference call with everyone and get them motivated and back on board and all that kind of stuff. It's really not uncommon. But what I would like for you guys to keep your campaign staff on board and motivated and focused. So how do you do that? So why do staff stay with a campaign? Because they feel a sense of community. A good campaign starts to feel like a family, uh, because they feel ownership and they have a stake in what they're doing in the campaign. They're not being micromanaged. They have their area expertise and they feel they're making a difference. They feel appreciated. They feel that their efforts aren't just peeing in the wind, like they're feeling appreciated. Um, Big one, they're having fun. If they're having fun, they'll stay. Another thing is you check in with them from time to time to see how they're doing as a human being, person to person, and also how they feel about their role. And the last one, they feel like they're on a winning team. And this doesn't mean that they feel they're going to win the election all the time. It can mean they just feel they're on a winning team. So here are probably six little steps, six little things on how to bring your campaign team in and then keep them focused and finish strong. Establish your campaign's culture to keep them rooted in it. Decide what you want the norms of your campaign to be, both how they interact with each other, but also how they interact with the public. And successful campaigns create a culture and they decide, what are our expectations with each other? How are we going to speak to one another? What's acceptable? What's not? You know, what hours do we expect each other to be available? Because otherwise there could be conflicts. One person may expect their teammates to be available 24/7, like they're texting them and they're like, come on, come on, come on, why aren't you on? And they're getting mad because they aren't there. And other people may say, you know what, I have these specific hours that I'm available and this is acceptable. But you're going to have to decide what is the culture for your campaign. Also, what tools will you use as part of that culture? And are people expected to use them or not? Some people are technology adverse. So it may be that you have a culture where you have easier to use tools. They may not be as deep of a tool, but they're easier to use so that you can keep people on board with using them. Or your campaign culture may be, we are going to be so tech forward. We're going to use technology as a force multiplier. And so we need everyone to be on board with this. And if that's the culture and that's the expectation, that's okay as long as everyone's clear with that from the very beginning. And yep, kindness and positivity. Hours expectancy are super important, and work-life balance. Absolutely. Yep, we get comments coming in saying, "Yep, that is totally what it is." So establish what your campaign's culture is going to be. Also, what is the tone of your campaign? Are you going to be like a really positive campaign and you're never going to say anything negative? Are you going to get down to some real confrontational politics? What is that? What is the tone of your campaign going to be? You guys get to set that, but set that tone and then be consistent with it. Remember how I said you need to have clearly defined goals and how that's also important for keeping people on board? You have to be honest about your campaign goals. You have to be honest about that. Don't lie to people about what your campaign goals are because you think people won't join unless you say X, Y, or Z. Don't do that. People can see through it. And if they can't see through it at first, they'll see through it later and they will not only feel duped and leave your campaign, they may exit out of working on campaigns, period. And then you've burned valuable staff that we desperately need in the LP. So please don't do that. You need to have clearly defined and measurable goals. If your goal does not have a timeline and a measurement standard, it is not a goal. It is a wish. That is not the same thing. And I had a campaign ask, my candidate has a goal of helping down ticket candidates, which is freaking fantastic. I love that as a goal. So that was one of their campaign goals. And I was like, great. So what are the tangible ways they're going to do that? And how are they going to measure success to show that they accomplish that? Well, there wasn't anything. Okay. Find out your benchmark goals. Find out how you can measure that, when you're going to measure that, and how you're going to find out if you've been successful in that. And it has to be really concrete. So make sure you have those benchmarking goals and make sure you can objectively measure them. And why do you do that? Because you need to celebrate every success with your campaign team. Every single one. So if you set your campaign goal, for instance, say your campaign goal is to win, like I'm in it to win. And then you say, okay, here's some of our sub goals. One of our sub goals is we're going to knock 2,000 doors. That's one of our sub goals. We know if we hit that goal, that's a benchmarking goal along the way to electoral success. And this means each week during this campaign season, we need to knock on 200 doors to hit that. Well, each time you hit that 200 doors each week, you're going to celebrate that with your campaign team. And that's building a win. Now they're on a winning team. You are winning. If your goals are to get media mentions, you're going to get 10 media mentions on a specific issue. Each time you get a media mention, you guys are going to make a big deal out of it. You're going to put that information out there, but you're also going to celebrate it internally. So that's another reason why you have to have these clearly defined goals as they relate to motivating and keeping your campaign staff. Yes, you also need them just for running your campaign and being successful, but you desperately need them to keep your campaign staff on board and motivated. So celebrate each small success, each little goal and benchmark. Another way to keep your campaign motivated and focused and on board is to either have weekly or daily, that's up to you, talking points. And that goes out to every staff member, either at the beginning of the week or, daily or whatever it is. What's the message of the day? Are you all communicating that same message and amplifying that message? Is the field team on board with the message the same as the events team, the same as social media, the same as, everyone? Is everyone communicating and amplifying that same message? Are you all on board with each other? And this is something that can be done very simply with a single email, again, either weekly or daily, just with the main talking points and the tone, right? So it's the talking points, but you also put in there the tone. So it could be, the talking points are um, the debate just happened, or the candidate panel just happened. Here's our talking points walking away from that. And the tone is upbeat and energized. So always put the tone with it too. So that's a good one. Uh, Also, at least weekly, have your team share success stories about how your campaign is affecting people. You're going to want to share those internally and externally. But you really want to do it, for your internal, to keep your people motivated, to keep your staff motivated. Each staff person should share a story, how a person they met now has hope because of some solution you offered, or they're so happy that you're running, how they found out about the Libertarian Party through your candidacy, um, something awful a resident is going through and they're hoping that you can help fix. It's something that connects all of you on the campaign back to your mission and helps motivate you guys back on your goal. The other thing that sharing these stories is going to do is, as your campaign staff come into contact with other people and they're like, why are you on board with this? And you're like, let me tell you this story. So, you know, my friend who, does social media, someone contacted her and said X, Y, and Z. And, it was such a powerful moment for me. And I was like, that's why I'm on board with this campaign. So you want to be able to do that and make that a habit of doing that weekly. And it doesn't have to take a long time. It's just something to get in the habit of sharing with your campaign team. And it really will bond your campaign team tightly when you're doing this, and help them bond onto that mission as well. But the last thing is, and I know we're going a little long today, but thank you for hanging with me, everyone. Properly thank your staff. You cannot thank your staff members too much. And yes, you should globally thank them. Team, yay, we did great. Okay. But I also really want to encourage you to singularly thank your campaign team members. Um, and I want you to use this language. You can start to phrase it in different ways, but I want you to use the phrase because of you. If you get in that habit, you're going to phrase the thank you in the proper way, because you can say, yay, we knocked 500 doors this weekend. Woohoo, we did it. Okay, that is great. Better is when you're going to your individual staff members and saying, like, to your to your field ops person, right? Because of you, every one of our volunteers was trained and we were able to finish precinct 1 today. So you see how that's a much more personal thank you that related directly to what they did. Or to one of your, if you have like a door knocker deluxe person, right? One of your fantastic people, and they're part of your campaign staff and they're just fantastic. It's, because of you and the fantastic job you did canvassing today, we identified 4 more supporters. So that gets into very specific ways to thank people. And if you were thanked in that manner, if you were working on a campaign and you were regularly thanked and appreciated in that way, how would you feel? How devoted would you be to that campaign? If you were able to celebrate wins all along the way, Every time you hit one of those little mini goals of something that you guys were trying to do, one of those benchmarking goals, how much fun would it be to be on that type of campaign? And if you knew what the culture was for your campaign and everyone else did too, and you all supported one another in that type of culture, how you're going to interact with each other and how you're going to interact with other people, when you feel like you were on the same page with everyone, and in the same way, if you had your talking points, either your daily talking points or your once a week talking points, along with what the tone was to convey, when you feel like you were in the know, that you knew kind of what was going on and you were all part of the same team. So I really do want to encourage everyone to start to incorporate this into how you interact with your campaign staff. I know there's a lot of focus on finding campaign staff, and I realize it's difficult. But the other part is keeping your campaign staff. So, thank you so much for being part of this training and hanging in with me. I know this was a longer one. I usually try to keep it to 20 minutes, but this is kind of a beefy and important topic, and so I really appreciate it. So, I will see you. I will see you next Monday. Have a good one.